Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to review Pirates and Buccaneers of the Atlantic Coast by Edward Rowe Snow. This is a first edition copy. This came out in 1944. And so this book is coming up on 80 years old. I used to have a dust jacket for it. That was already in rough shape when I got this book. Oh, I was a kid. It was over 30 years ago. But anyway, so I've had it for a good portion of its life. This is the first book on pirates I ever read, and this was a great read. I'm actually rereading it now, so the binding isn't quite as tight as it used to be here, but that's okay. This book will last a long time to come. So Pirates and Buccaneers of the Atlantic Coast by Edward Rowe Snow. He was a native of Massachusetts and loved to research these things. And so here's a really stunning illustration as soon as you open up the book. And you got Captain William Kidd here in these enormous chains. And it seems like, well, that's kind of an exaggeration, right? Snow didn't draw this. He found these illustrations and incorporated them into his book. But this was to keep Kidd from escaping jail. A pirate had escaped not long before. And this book is divided up into various sections of the Atlantic coast. So part 1 is New England pirates. Part 2, Chesapeake Bay to Florida. Part 3, New York, Philadelphia, and southward. Part 4, the women pirates. Part 5, Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. Part 6, searching for buried pirate treasure. And then he has all the illustrations. Now, because this book is laid out the way that it is, so we have one type of paper for all the text of the book, but then all the plates have a different type of paper. It's a magazine type paper, a little thicker than you get in a magazine, but kind of like National Geographic, I guess. So it's a quality photo paper and it has these illustrations. It tells you the story is on a certain page. And that's really my only beef with this book, right? Because these have to be inserted into various places. So you could be reading about, so here we're reading about Philip Ashton, and they stick in Captain Edward Lowe. And here's a picture of Edward Rowe Snow himself, and this poison dagger, even though they call it a dagger, but it's a sword, with his mother, that it was taken from the pirates by her father, Captain Joshua N. Rowe, in the Philippines. So that's pretty neat. We have other illustrations here. So they're stuck in. If you can see the book like this, maybe you can make out those. They're much whiter every few pages at regular intervals. They put these in, right? Oh yes, there's the end of Captain Kidd, but that's not written in the Kidd section. That's my only beef with it. So a few years ago, they came out with these Snow Centennial Editions, and this is a different book entirely, Storms and Shipwrecks of New England. Hey, that's kind of hard to say. The Snow Centennial Edition, this came out in 2003, this particular book, and they're made to mimic the look of the first edition books. A little bit anyway. You know, we got the gold lettering, which is kind of nice. It's about the size of a hymnal. You know, it's a good solid binding. I mean, this book is going to last a while as well. But what this book does differently is it just puts illustrations right in the text where they belong. Where I'm sure Edward Rowe Snow would have liked them to be if they could have been. But, you know, it just wasn't possible with the other book. So the Snow Centennial Editions are trying to look like the original printings. And the only thing they did differently was they updated them. So this has some updated information. Because Edward Rowe Snow was doing all of his work, hoofing it to libraries and archives. There was no internet when Snow did his research. It was a lot harder in those days. But this is a good introduction to pirates, and it is inevitably the book by which I judge all other pirate books. So, sorry, Eric J. Dolan. This one takes the prize. So this is doing a similar thing to Eric J. Dolan's book, Black Flags, Blue Waters. We just grabbed that off my shelf. So here's Black Flags, Blue Waters. And these are doing very similar things. But they're from different writers. So that's a good thing. I'm glad Eric J. Dolan wrote this book. Gives us another perspective. Maybe things Edward Rowe Snow hadn't found or hadn't thought of. So we see the difference there. So we don't really know what each chapter is about too much based on this. And Snow is just going to give us rundowns on each of these pirates. Now, I believe Snow himself is following in the footsteps of other pirate writers many decades and maybe even centuries before him. But I'll get to that in another interview. Another review. Sorry about that. It's early and I'm tongue-tied. All right. Sometimes I misspeak and things can be a little funny. There were women pirates. And we just see, a lot more piracy happened on these shores or came from these shores than maybe we realize. And so I recommend this book to anybody who has even just a passing interest in the history of piracy. And whether you're from the United States or Europe or somewhere, this is an excellent read. Snow is a very engaging writer, a very good storyteller. You can find some interviews of him on YouTube. Just a really interesting guy. And I think that you'll enjoy this book. I love it. I can't get enough of it. Again, I told you I'm reading it again for I don't even know how many times at this point. But it's a great read. Very enjoyable. Well, I hope this finds you well, and I hope everyone has a great day.